Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits podcast here to make you another cocktail. Today's cocktail is the Egyptian Martini. I'm going to start with a shaker of ice. To that, we're going to add 2 ounces raspberry liqueur. 2 ounces raspberry liqueur. Vanilla vodka, 1 ounce. 1 ounce of vanilla vodka. Triple sec or orange liqueur. I'm using Cointreau. 1/2 an ounce. Next, we shake. And take our martini glass. Strain in there. Next, the instructions say, float a bit of sparkling water over the top, if desired. Then we garnish maraschino cherries. And there you have the Egyptian Martini. It even floated pretty good. Delicious. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See ya.
How long would you be willing to wait for your one true love? A couple weeks? 20 years? Or maybe a millennium or more, like in this week's episode of the Scary Spirits podcast, the 1932 horror movie, The Mummy. And what happens when the day finally arrives? The wait is over. What if your love is not returned? You're rejected after your long suffering. Does that mean your pining away was extra romantic or just plain old stalking? I hate to admit it, but Greg might be right on this one. It just might be stalking. Cheers.
Welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg,
Hey, I'm Karen.
and welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different yet highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed.
Are you trying out a new voice today?
I am. I'm trying my coffee talk voice.
Oh, okay. It's quicker and breathier. You're going back to the Marilyn Monroe. I think that you think that works for you.
How are you, Karen?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Greg?
I'm simply wonderful.
Any reason you're trying your coffee talk voice out?
Nope, just trying to keep everything fresh, Karen. Keeping it fresh.
Okay.
The mood hits me sometimes. I'm inspired. Like, I don't know, the muses.
Well, okay.
All right, Karen, I believe this week was your choice, was it? Was it not?
It was, but I think maybe we should start off by talking about our big contest that's going on.
Okay.
Getting in the holiday spirit,
Yes.
Well, we've decided that to be in the holiday spirit, we'd like to do a giveaway. We've got two fabulous books for you. Both are based on Wicked Ramblings episodes.
One is from episode 6, which was Rock Tales, an amped up spin on mixology, when we learned all about making cocktails, Karen.
Yes. And apple cider.
Yes. And we have a signed, I believe it's a hardcover book by Kristen Kreft and Maya Banatwala.
Yes.
The authors of that book, Karen.
Yes. If you haven't heard that Wicked Ramblings, go back and give it a listen. It's very cool.
And we also have a book about Krampus. Is that correct, Karen?
Yes, we do.
Written by Al Reidenauer. All about Krampus and, dark folklore and whatnot.
That's from our latest Wicked Ramblings episode featuring Ed Satura.
Which came out just a few days ago, Karen, on Sunday.
All about Krampus.
All about Krampus.
Who's just really misunderstood.
Just like Satan.
Yeah. Not a bad guy. He just does his job.
Does his job.
Either one of those books would make a fabulous holiday gift. And all you have to do is email us at info@scaryspirits.com with contest in the subject line and your name in the body of the email.
Yes, we will pick a winner at random, I believe. What did we say, Karen? December 15th?
Yes.
Yep, it's circled on my calendar.
You know you want those books, so go ahead and do it.
Yes, right now. Stop right now.
Pause.
info@scaryspirits.com. Subject, contest, name.
Easy peasy.
All right, Karen, moving on. I believe this film was your choice, was it not?
It was.
And what film have you chosen for us this week?
I've chosen The Mummy from 1932.
1932, you say, Karen.
Yes.
Starring, I believe, Boris Karloff, right?
Exactly.
Any reason why you chose this film, Karen?
Boris Karloff.
Oh, go on. Do tell.
It's his birthday today.
It is.
It is.
And
Happy birthday.
And if you, the listener, were a subscriber to our newsletter, you would know that. So you can go to our website, scaryspirits.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. Get a monthly newsletter where we talk about birthdays.
Tell you whose birthday it is.
And we do a little feature on them. And
so you can be stellar at any party you attend. Today is Boris Karloff's birthday.
There are several other November birthdays in our November newsletter.
Well, don't spoil it. Make them go get it.
Well, another one is in this film, Karen.
Ah, okay.
There's 2 birthday boys in this film.
Well, do you want to tell us or do you want to wait until they make an
waiting.
appearance? Okay. Awesome. Suspenseful.
Yes.
I like it.
Do you have a cocktail for this film, Karen?
I do.
Go on.
It's called the Egyptian Martini.
The Egyptian Martini. And how would we make this drink, Karen?
You're going to need to gather ingredients of 2 ounces of raspberry liqueur, 1 ounce of vanilla vodka, half an ounce of triple sec liqueur, and maraschino cherries or fresh raspberries for serving. You can put a dash of sparkling water on it also. You want to know how to make it?
Absolutely, Karen. As I sip it.
Yes, looks like you already know.
I did.
In a cocktail shaker, mix together the raspberry liqueur, the vanilla vodka, and the triple sec. Shake well. Pour into a martini glass garnished with maraschino cherries and or raspberries. Float a bit of sparkling water over the top if desired, and enjoy.
I desired the sparkling water, Karen.
I did not.
And it even floated pretty well, but it's kind of mixing in now. But all I had was lime flavored sparkling water. So,
oh,
Don't know how that affects the cocktail, but it's good.
It's surprisingly sweet. It didn't say to shake it in ice, so
I did.
It's mine's room temperature.
I should mine in ice. Yours looks a lot redder than mine.
Well, you diluted yours by shaking it in ice and putting water on it.
That's true. I did.
I like it.
It tastes familiar. It tastes like another one we've had. I don't know what, but.
And you get a little nice surprise with the cherry soaked liquors at the end there.
Should we give our listener time to make their own, Karen?
Of course. They're going to want this one.
Hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Karen, might you have a brief synopsis of this film from 1932 starring Boris Karloff?
Billed just Karloff, right?
Well, that's what I read. He's billed as Karloff, but in the credits it says
Boris Karloff.
Yeah. Maybe in in posters and advertisements, he was just listed as Karloff, Karen.
Would you like to hear a story?
Absolutely, Karen. Tell me a story.
The Mummy is a rousing, suspenseful, and horrifying epic about an expedition of treasure-seeking explorers in the Sahara Desert in 1925. Stumbling upon an ancient tomb, the hunters unwittingly set loose a 3,000-year-old legacy of terror, which is embodied in the vengeful reincarnation of an Egyptian priest who had been sentenced to an eternity as one of the living dead.
We are not a match, Karen.
This one sounds like it came from the studio.
Yeah, I have a completely different.
You want to tell yours?
Nope.
You don't want to share with the class?
I do not.
Okay.
What kind of film was it? The Mummy is a what?
Rousing, suspenseful, and horrifying epic.
Really sells it though.
Yeah. A marketing person wrote this.
Epic. Horrifying epic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, whatever they say.
Yeah, for anyone, if they're in Dr. Craig's class ever, if you listen to one of our wicked ramblings and you're in a horror film class, remember that. Epic.
Horrifying epic.
Rousing and suspenseful.
All right, Karen, are you ready to get into it? Yes, let's. The Mummy from 1932. Did you watch this on the Blu-ray Monsters Universal thing that someone very generously gifted you, or did you watch this on Amazon or something else?
I did watch it on Amazon.
So did I.
Only because it's easier to pause if
Yeah.
I miss something and go back.
Yes, I did too.
Have you seen it before?
I've seen a lot of it. Not all of it, though.
I've seen it.
I think I usually catch it at the end or the middle to the end when I'm watching like channel surfing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, Karen, prior to watching, this was my least favorite of all the Universal monster films.
I didn't have high hopes.
We'll see if my opinion changes.
I watched it a couple Halloweens ago when it was on Turner Classic Movies or something, and I just decided they were showing all of them in a row, and I watched them all. So I'll give my opinion at the end also.
Okay, good. So the first thing that popped up on the Amazon Prime was 13 plus, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
No other warnings. Then we have credits. And then there's words to read.
Do all Universal films have the same opening music?
Yes. And they all have that little airplane flying around the globe.
But they have during the credits, it's what is it, Swan Lake or something? We looked it up before. But it's the same music in every one.
Is. Yep.
But yeah, the pyramids are in the background as the credits are going. So you know you're going into Egypt.
And the words say, "This is the scroll of Thoth. Herein are set down the magic words by which Isis raised Osiris from the dead. O Amun-Ra, O God of gods, death is but the doorway to new life. We live today, we shall live again. And many forms shall we return, O mighty one."
Okay, so stop for a second.
Okay.
Do you know the story of Isis and Osiris?
All I know about Isis is that she was a girl that was on Saturday mornings with Shazam.
And you know her too, I'm sure, from Wonder Woman. And when she would turn around and change as Linda Carter, she would say, "Oh, mighty Isis." And
Oh, was she? No,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
but that had some, I don't think that had Egyptian roots, but whatever. Isis was the ancient Egyptian goddess of fertility, motherhood, magic, death, healing, and rebirth. And she's the first daughter of Geb and Nut, who was the god of earth and the goddess of the sky. She's the sister of Osiris, and then he later became her husband.
As they do.
Osiris is the god of the dead.
I feel like I remember hearing that somewhere.
They fell deeply in love with each other in the womb.
So they're twins?
The way it works, I don't think
would have to be, wouldn't they?
It's weird back in the thing. They don't all get born at the same time, even if they're in the womb, I don't think. But Seth, the god of disorder, murdered Osiris, the god of order. And
he sounds like someone I'd like. Seth. I'm making
well, he was mad because Seth was mad because his wife conceived a child, Anubis, by Osiris. And so he invited everybody to a banquet.
That would piss you off, I think.
Yeah. And he basically tore Osiris into 14 pieces and flung them all over Egypt. So Isis performed a great act of magic with help from other gods. They began to sew Osiris's body back together. They worked together night after night. And when the body was whole again, they wrapped it head to toe in strips of linen, creating a mummy. And then he came back to life.
Yes. And the whole scroll of Thoth thing is not real at all. There was no such scroll. So, you know.
Oh, I was going to say, I guess not, but okay.
No, it is
okay.
not.
I would have guessed not, but that's what he's talking about throughout the movies. The Mummy is talking about how Isis raised Osiris from the dead, and she did. And that's what he's talking about. But the story is famous that he was torn into many pieces and was put back together before he was brought back to life. And that's the origin of mummification.
Yes. Thoth was an Egyptian deity, but there was no scroll of Thoth, which, gave a spell to bring the dead back to life or anything like that.
Well, he's the god of the moon and sacred texts, math, science, magic. He's depicted as a bird. But if there was going to be a scroll to bring someone back to life, it would be through him, because he is the god of magic, texts, science, that kind of stuff. So,
okay.
Somebody did their research. All right. Now that we have half a listener, let's go on.
Yes. Then we see Field Expedition Season 1921, British Museum. And we see a couple archaeologists, Sir Joseph and Dr. Mueller. And here's where I wrote, "Happy birthday" to Edward Van Sloan, Karen, who plays Dr. Mueller. You might recognize him from other such films as Dracula, Frankenstein.
All Universals. Yes.
He's the original Van Helsing for the most part. And his birthday, Karen, was November 1st. So another November birthday. So happy belated 140th birthday, Edward Van Sloan.
Woo woo.
Right. But apparently they've discovered a mummy, Imhotep, and it wasn't embalmed like normal mummies were. Apparently this person was buried alive, right? And they debate on what could have,
yeah, he
brought him to this bitter end, Karen. And they
says
think
he looks
maybe
like
treason or sacrilege.
He looks like he died in an unpleasant manner because he struggled in the bandages. So that's how they know he was buried alive, because they could see the struggle.
And he has no wounds on his body where they, removed his organs or anything. He was never embalmed. They just wrapped him up and threw him in a sarcophagus.
Yes. And you're right. Treason or sacrilege.
But there's also a gold box, Karen, in there with him they discovered.
Yes, it's very heavy.
And the seal is unbroken. No one has touched it. And there's a warning, of course.
A terrible curse.
Yeah. Death, eternal punishment for anyone who opens this casket in the name
We should
of...
say there's a young man with the two older gentlemen, too.
His name is Ralph Norton, Karen.
And he's all gung-ho about opening the box.
He is the name of both the honeymooners. Ralph Norton. But he doesn't believe in that curse shit. He thinks it's in the 3,000 years it's been buried. All that shit's worn off, I'm sure, he says, or something like that. But the two archaeologists, Sir Joseph and Ralph Norton, want to open.
Yeah, Dr. Mueller, who is a professor of the occult, Egyptian occult is what his title is. Yeah. He says, no, you don't want to do that. And then the two older men have to go outside of the digging site, the tomb where they are, to talk about it.
He's basically playing Van Helsing in this film as well, but whatever.
Yes.
I see lots of similarities.
But they've left the young man by himself with the casket that has the curse.
Yeah.
So,
and they think the box may contain the scrolls of Thoth that Isis used to raise Osiris from the dead, Karen. Even though that's not a real thing. But we cut back to Ralph Norton, and he can't help himself, Karen. He opens the box.
He has to.
What's in the box?
He tries. He distracts himself, but it just doesn't work.
And he finds an ancient scroll. Cut back to Sir Joseph trying to get Dr. Mueller to go back and examine the box with him. Dr. Mueller declines.
Yeah, Dr. Mueller knows what's what.
Yeah. Ralph Norton deciphers the scroll.
He starts to.
And he begins reading the words aloud to himself, Karen.
Yes, as you do. The only thing left is having his finger go along it as he talks to himself. But yeah, he's saying the words out loud.
And as he does, the mummy behind him comes to life.
Yeah, he starts breathing and then his eyes begin to open.
The mummy grabs the scroll and Ralph freaks the fuck out, Karen.
Yeah, and that hand reaching towards the scroll is very creepy. And you do see the scarab beetle ring that he's wearing.
Yes.
But it's pretty good, gross hand.
Yeah, it's all right. But Ralph just goes nuts, laughing hysterically. Sir Joseph comes running in to find out what the hell's going on.
There is a cool scene before that I like, that when the mummy leaves the room, he's dragging his bandages behind him. So you don't see the mummy walking, you just see the bandages leaving the room. I thought that was kind of cool. It was a nice touch.
Sir Joseph sees that the mummy and the scroll are missing.
He sees a handprint next to the translation too. So every time the mummy touches something, I guess it's dust particles because he's disintegrating because he's so old.
So then we see Field Expedition Season 1932, the British Museum, about 10 years later, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And Sir Joseph's son, Frank, is on this expedition with Professor Pearson. And they talk about what happened, 10 years ago, and Frank or Ralph going nuts and whatever.
Yeah, they talk about his father being the best excavator in Britain and how he vowed never to come back. And that must have meant something. But yeah, they're talking about Dad and the previous one.
Then a person enters who looks a lot like the mummy, Karen.
There's a knock at the door. And they say, come on in. It's an Egyptian man that looks like the mummy. That's what I wrote.
Yeah, his name is Ardeth Bey.
Does that mean something?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I couldn't find anything that said so.
He enters and gives them a piece of pottery that he had found and shows them a new spot to dig, Karen.
Yes, because he says the Egyptians are not permitted to dig up their ancient dead, so he needs their help.
And they're looking for the tomb of Princess Ankh-Esen-Amen. Next, we see men digging, and apparently they found something, and the archaeologists leave their umbrella to come see what they have found.
So all of the workers are digging and passing up baskets as they remove the dirt, and the two British guys are in white suits under an umbrella watching. But they do
they
find
have their little, expedition hats on too, helmets
this
or
true.
whatever they are.
They do find something. They find a step.
Yes, a step.
Then they start digging faster.
Mm-hmm. And they see the name of Ankh Esanamen.
Well, they found a door.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the seal of the 7 jackals, Karen. Apparently they figure, oh, this is an undisturbed tomb, right? It's all still sealed up.
They do say they should get his father, Frank's father, so that he can be here when they open it.
So Sir Joseph returns from England to supervise the sensational find by the British Museum expedition.
Yeah, we see a newspaper
Tomb of
headline.
ancient princess uncovered intact. Sir Joseph Whemple returns from England to supervise sensational find by British Museum expedition near Thebes. Right? Is that how you say that? Thebes? Or is it Thebes?
I always said Thebes, but I don't know.
Okay, Thebes. Whatever. Then we see the Cairo Museum, Karen. And there's more words to read.
You can do it.
This gallery contains the mummy and complete funerary equipment of the Princess Ankh Esanamen, 18th dynasty, circa 1730 BC. All objects in this room are from her unplundered tomb.
Yes.
Discovered by the British Museum Field Force, 1932.
All of the objects in this room are from her unplundered tomb.
Yes.
So they're plundered because they're now not in
by science.
I just thought it was funny. All of the objects in this room are from her unplundered tomb. Well, it seems to me they're plundered, but go on.
And as we see Ardith Bay, and he's in there viewing the relics, Karen, paying a trip to the museum.
There's jewelry. She herself is there. All her personal effects. They're all in the room.
Toiletries.
Yes. They actually said toiletries, which
they
was
did. Next, we cut to a party, Karen. I don't know. There's a party going on somewhere.
Modern day woman in a slinky party dress.
Who we learn is Helen. And she's hanging with Dr. Mueller there at the party.
Smoking a long cigarette and looking out at the pyramids.
Was she? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, she was. But she doesn't seem very happy.
No, she doesn't. And we cut back to Ardith Bay looking at the exhibit.
She's glad to be where she is because she was in Sudan, which she didn't like. And she's staying with the Muellers.
Yes.
Not with her father, who's the mayor, governor of Sudan, I think they said. Governor.
Sir Joseph enters and tells Ardith Bay that it is closing time at the museum.
But he says, don't you know who I am? Basically introduces himself. And they say, oh my God, because he's responsible for them finding the whole thing. We're going to stay up all night in your honor. You stay as long as you want.
And he doesn't like to be touched, apparently.
No, he doesn't. Because Sir Joseph tries to shake his hand and he brushes him off. And then he tries to guide him through the exhibit. And then he says, I don't like to be touched.
He says
hands
it's
off.
An Eastern prejudice, he says. Next, we see Ardith Bay kneeling by the sarcophagus of the Princess Ankh Esanamen with a scroll. And he recites some words as Helen dances at the party.
Yes, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
He recites the name of the princess. Helen stops dancing, collects her fur from the coat check, and leaves.
She's in a trance. She's just walking like she doesn't know where she is, but she does stop for her fur, then goes out the front door.
And she gets in a taxi and goes to the museum.
Yes. And she arrives right as Sir Joseph and Frank are leaving the museum.
Yep. Closing time. And she says Imhotep's name in the taxi as they're driving. She arrives at the museum, like you said, just as they're leaving, and she begins to bang on the door, and then she collapses.
She must get in. She must get in. And then she faints.
Frank picks her up.
I like her shoes.
And they take her back to their room. I guess it's their hotel room. I don't know. I don't think they live there. Frank and Sir Joseph or whatever. But
I just said they've taken her home. I don't know where that is, but
and
yes.
she begins speaking ancient Egyptian, Karen.
Not heard for over 2,000 years.
Back at the museum, a night watchman finds Ardith Bay. And he gone, the night watchman.
Yes.
Dr. Mueller comes to see Sir Joseph and Frank, looking for Helen because, she's staying with him.
He figured out where she was by something she left in the car.
Helen wakes and wonders where she is. Introductions are made, Karen. Sir Joseph tells Frank to make himself agreeable to Helen. What the hell's that mean, Karen?
Well, I don't know, but he sure does.
Yeah. Sir Joseph and Dr. Mueller go to the other room, he says, make yourself agreeable to her.
But they go to discuss her when it's one of the things that bothers me in this movie. They just keep leaving to talk about her, even though she can maybe help them. We're going to go talk about you in another room.
I guess Frank tells Helen about her fainting at the museum and she does not remember anything. Frank tells her about finding the tomb of the princess.
He does ask her if she's partly Egyptian.
Yes.
Because he says there's something about you.
Yeah. And he says once they found the tomb of the princess, he kind of fell in love with her once they unwrapped her face and he saw her skull.
He was enchanted by the skull. They're flirting a little bit. He says he would have liked Egypt a lot more if he'd have met her there. They're getting along very well.
Yes. Next, we cut to Sir Joseph and Dr. Mueller talking about Imhotep.
He does mention right before they cut to the next scene that she looks like the princess. He implies that, and then they cut to the two men talking about Imhotep.
Then Sir Joseph gets a call on the phone, Karen. Bad news. Apparently, a museum guard has been found dead in the room of the princess. Got back to the museum. Apparently, there's a doctor there, a coroner or something, and he says he died of shock or something.
Yes.
But the scroll is still there.
Which was weird. If he's dead, take the scroll. I thought that was odd that he didn't. Why would it still be there?
Yes, but this is the first time anyone else has seen it, so Sir Joseph opens it and recognizes it as the scroll of Thoth.
He's very shocked. He is shocked by that.
Yeah. Cut back to Frank and Helen making a love connection.
Yep, getting closer.
And she says this, Karen, and I stopped it and made a note word for word. She says, don't you think I've had enough excitement for one evening without the excitement of a strange man making love to me?
I'm surprised they left that in there.
Well, it's pre-code. She has to have a skimpy outfit on later. And then they kiss, Karen.
They do.
Sir Joseph and Dr. Mueller enter. And Sir Joseph said, the curse has struck her, and through her it will strike my son. Dun, dun, dun. They ask Frank to come to the study with them. And then they talk about the scroll and Imhotep. Dr. Mueller wants to know what happened to the mummy of Imhotep. Frank says it was stolen. Sir Joseph is not so sure.
Yeah, Frank says obviously someone stole it. But Sir Joseph says he doesn't know what happened to it.
Just then, Ardith Bay arrives at the house. The house servant or whatever lets him in and then kneels before him, Karen.
After a little bit of a stare down and some ancient Egyptian speak.
Ardith Bay finds Helen asleep on the couch. Helen awakes. Ardith Bay tells her he has come to see Sir Joseph. He asks her if they have met before. Helen says she does not think so. She would have remembered.
And they're staring deeply into each other's eyes this entire time.
Yes.
And he's in her space. I said he's awfully close to her. But she says no one would forget meeting you.
Go back to Dr. Mueller and I guess Sir Joseph and whatever. And Dr. Mueller wants the scroll burned. And then they discover that Ardith Bay is there with Helen. And they think he has come for the scroll.
Sir Joseph is reluctant to burn it because he says it's the museum's property. But
Sir Joseph, Frank, and Dr. Mueller enter. Ardith Bay and Helen keep their eyes locked on each other the whole time.
Yes, they do.
Sir Joseph tells them of the tragedy at the museum.
Helen is concerned that it happened while she was there.
Yes.
And then Ardith is excited to hear that she was at the museum.
Yes. He seems very interested, I wrote.
They tell me that's where I fainted. But she couldn't get in because it was closed. She doesn't remember anything.
Dr. Mueller makes Helen leave.
Yes. And I should say they're all wearing tuxedos. I just thought,
Well, they just came from the party.
Frank and Sir Joseph?
Yeah, it's all the same night. The night of the party. She's still wearing her party dress. Why wouldn't they be wearing their tuxedos?
I guess. I just thought I didn't see them at the party.
I thought I saw a nipple slip too when she got up. She was wearing a very low-cut party dress, Karen.
Yes, she was.
It's nice, though.
Mhm.
Nice party dress.
I agree. Slinky.
Yeah, but not as good as her shoes, Karen. The shoes
I could wear her shoes. I couldn't wear her dress. So I go with what works for me. Hey, Greg, the holiday season is upon us. Are you feeling the spirit?
Yeah, I'm feeling good about our giveaway anyway.
Me too. We've got 2 great prizes to award our listener. One is a book titled The Krampus and the Old Dark Christmas, Roots and Rebirth of the Folkloric Devil by Al Ridenauer. And the other is a signed hardcover copy of Rock Tales, an amped-up spin on mixology by Kristen Kreft and Mayalu Banatwala.
Kristen and Maya were on an episode of Scary Spirits Podcast Presents Wicked Ramblings, and now we are giving away the book they wrote.
They were amazing on the podcast. We want to make sure to celebrate Krampusnacht too, so we've got a book to school you all about the history of Krampus.
Ed Sutera talks all about Krampus on our newest Wicked Ramblings episode, Krampus is Coming.
He does, and he highly recommends this book. Want to know how to win one of these terrific prizes?
Duh. Yeah.
Just email your name to info@scaryspirits.com and put contest in the subject line.
Just make sure you email us by December 15th and put contest in the subject line.
Do it today and you too can be a winner.
Yes. So Dr. Mueller tells Ardith Bay about the scroll. He shows him part of the translation, or part of the, it's not really a translation, it's just a part of the scroll that someone wrote down, right? He says he doesn't know how to read that. It's too old for him or whatever. He
Yeah, I
doesn't
thought
know
that was kind of
dialect.
very sly, because he's saying it's too old.
He also shows him a picture of the mummy Imhotep.
And he says, "Why are you showing me this stuff?"
Yes, and then he turns and he's like, that scroll belongs to me. Turns on him. And they will return it or die, Karen. It belongs to him. He bought it.
From a dealer, he says.
It belongs to him.
And he knows it's in the house.
He does.
In that room that they are in.
And Dr. Mueller threatens Ardith Bay, but says his power is too strong. Says if he could, he would, attack him and whatever.
And they also find out that the house servant has become the slave of the mummy in this moment. Because Dr. Mueller says he would rip him to pieces, which is interesting because that's harking back to Osiris being ripped to pieces. So there was a connection there.
So next, Dr. Mueller again urges Sir Joseph to burn the scroll after, I guess, Ardith Bay leaves. But next we see him using his magic to watch Sir Joseph's attempt to burn the scroll.
It looks like a TV.
It does look like a TV.
But it's turned out it's a magical pool of water that he can see
magical
things
hot
in.
tub, Karen.
Yes, it is. He can see things in his magical hot tub. But it looks like a TV.
And this is where I usually come in on the film, I feel like, because everything after this,
you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost everything after this.
So he's watching his magical hot tub. He sees Sir Joseph bending over, putting the scroll in the fireplace in his home and lighting a match.
And he uses his magic to cause Sir Joseph to have a heart attack.
Yes, he squeezes his hand And you can see the life draining out of Sir Joseph.
He gone. So next, Sir Joseph's house servant comes in, grabs the scroll and replaces it with newspaper in the fireplace, lights it, and leaves.
Again, a nice, smart touch. So it looks like the scroll was burned.
Dr. Mueller finds the ashes and believes it is the scroll. And he was going to give Sir Joseph an Isis charm to protect him. He and Frank talk about Helen. And here I wrote, Dr. Mueller tries to play matchmaker.
Well, he also gives the charm of Isis to Frank.
He does.
But Frank doesn't believe in it because the doctors just say it was heart failure, but they also say the servant is missing.
Yes, he's a Nubian, Karen. Nubian.
Yes.
You know that there
and Dr. Mueller.
There were Nubians in Star Wars, Karen. You know that Nubians.
No, I did not. But you got your Star Wars reference in.
Yeah, the Nubian. I think it's like in the prequel. They talk about Nubian ships and things on Tatooine and whatever. If you know, you know.
Dr. Mueller says that he needs Frank's help, and he saw how attracted the two young people were to each other. And Frank's like, "Ooh, is she attracted to me?" He gets, because he knows he's attracted to her, but he gets all.
Did you see something? Did you notice something?
Really?
You think she likes me? Really? Should I ask her to the school dance?
Dr. Mueller says, "Call her at the hotel and tell her not to leave." And he picks up some of the ashes from the fireplace.
Yeah, Dr. Mueller does and puts them into an envelope.
Evidence.
Yes. Frank calls Helen. She agrees to wait for them. And she expresses her condolences for his father, of course.
Yeah, nobody's all that broken up about it.
So on the way to the hotel to see Helen, Dr. Mueller examines the ashes and discovers they are newspaper. I think that would be pretty easy to see, Karen. Just saying.
Yeah, but it slowed him down a little bit. That's all. I mean,
I'm pretty sure he could tell as he was picking them up and putting them in that envelope.
Well, he says they're
newspaper.
They're not papyrus, is what he said.
Well, duh.
What's papyrus, Greg?
It's like an ancient
paper.
But
it's a
newspaper. If you burn newspaper, Karen, I've burned enough things, especially newspaper, to know that you can still see the ink and everything. You can read it.
Well, it depends on how much you've burned. Anyway, papyrus is a writing material made from the papyrus plant, a reed which grows in the marshy areas around the Nile River. It was used as a writing material as early as 3000 BC in ancient Egypt and continued to be used to some extent until around 1100 AD. So there you go.
Thank you, Karen.
It's a plant. You're welcome.
Plant-based paper.
Yes.
Much like paper.
Yes, but it's a specific plant.
Okay, whatever.
From the marshy areas around the Nile River.
Yes.
But Helen's on the phone saying she's not going to go out. She'll stay and wait.
Yeah.
She promises to wait until he gets there.
Dr. Mueller was sure that the mummy has the scroll now, Karen. He gives Frank the Isis charm and begs him to put it around his neck.
But he prefers to give it to Helen.
Yep. But next we see Helen walking her dog, Karen. I don't think the dog wants to be walked either.
No, I don't know if that was
that dog is not a good actor, Karen. Just saying.
Well, it might have been because it didn't want to go where she was going. So I didn't know if that was on purpose or not.
But she knocks at a door there, and we recognize the dude who was the house servant or whatever at Sir Joseph's house, answers, and we see Ardith Bey. And Ardith Bey waves his hand above the magical hot tub, Karen, and there's lots of Froggy's fog.
There is. They do take the dog away because it barks. It's afraid. So
it's afraid of the cat, Karen. The white cat, Karen.
It goes with the house servant. Yes. And they're sitting around the magical hot tub with the Froggy's fog.
And we see scenes of ancient Egypt.
He puts a spell on her, kind of, so she can see all this stuff.
Yeah. Imhotep and Princess Ankh-Essenamen. And apparently it's her burial that they're watching.
Yes, she's dying. He's at her side. She bites it. And then they're watching the burial.
And then we see Imhotep stealing the scroll of Thoth. And the statue is not happy, Karen.
No, it's not. And he tells everyone to leave the tomb.
And he's condemned to death by his father, Karen, Imhotep.
He's trying to bring her back to life. He's
Yes,
using the scroll, chanting the curse to try to
unnatural.
And they bust him. He gets caught.
Sacrilege, I would say, right?
Yes.
So basically they start mummifying him alive. They're wrapping him up. They're going to bury him in his sarcophagus alive. And then they're going to kill the slaves and the soldiers. So
I thought that was kind of a
he would
creepy
be.
scene when they were wrapping him up while he was alive. I thought that was kind of, if you think about that, that would suck.
But they wrapped his whole head, Karen. When they find him, his head is unwrapped.
Is it, or is it just plastered against his face so much and disintegrated?
No,
that's what I thought it looked like, because it looks like he has bandages on his face, just pressed into the skin. In the ancient time, they're burying him in an unmarked grave because it's a sacrilege. Yep. So they kill all the slaves. The soldiers kill the slaves. So the slaves can't say where it was.
And then more soldiers kill the soldiers who are there.
Yes. So no one knows.
No one knows where he is. Ardeth Bay tells Helen that she is the princess and that he must kill Frank so that he can't have her. And he wakes her from her trance. We hear the dog cry and Helen leaves.
She's confused. She thinks she's been asleep and dreaming of ancient Egypt. But what really pulls her out is the dog crying. She wants to go to the dog.
He gone.
Yeah. And Frank's waiting for her at the hotel.
Yeah, Helen comes home. Frank's waiting for her.
He's been worried.
Yeah, Helen remembers that the dog was killed by a white cat. Apparently that's something special. Frank knows all about the white cat.
Well, the white cat usually isn't the cat goddess Bast, but that's who he says it is. And Frank says, we know where you were.
Yeah, and Helen begs Frank not to let her go again.
Well, he declares his love for her. So she doesn't want to go because there's death there for her, is what she says. She doesn't want to go.
Helen at Frank's house. Helen trying to convince the nurse to help her to escape.
They're trying.
There's been a time lapse here.
Yes, there was a little time jump. Mrs. Mueller is at Frank's house. They all are at Frank's house. Another doctor is there trying to diagnose Helen. He doesn't know what's wrong with her. There's a nurse to take care of her and Mrs. Mueller. And the men are all in one room talking about Helen's condition, and the women are in another room convincing her to stay in bed.
Yeah, because she told them, the nurse says that Helen made her promise not to let her out when she said these kinds of things.
But she must escape. They're holding her. That's what she's saying.
She's a captive here.
Yes.
So they do say Helen is sick. The doctor doesn't know what's wrong with her. And then she asks for her lingerie and toiletries.
The lingerie she bought in Paris.
So she can look good for Frank. You know what I mean. You know. She says to Mrs. Mueller, right? Or something like that.
And Mrs. Mueller cannot resist her and lets her do it. I guess they're not supposed to let her out of the bed. I don't know.
She's still in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. All she did was get fixed up, put on some makeup, did her hair, put on her lingerie.
Yeah. Frank comes in and Mrs. Mueller asks for his forgiveness, whatever. They go in and then Dr. Mueller tells Helen that the next time she wants to go see Ardeth Bay, she should go to him.
Yeah, Frank is not happy about that.
But they hatch a plan to follow her and destroy him, Karen. That's their plan. We'll let her go and we'll follow her, and then we'll be able to kill him. Right?
Yep.
So next we see Frank smoking a Marlboro, reading the paper. Nurse comes out and tells Frank that Helen's asleep. She gave her something to help her sleep.
It's bromide.
Bromide.
Potassium bromide, frequently used as a sedative in the 19th and early 20th century. Their use in over-the-counter sedatives and headache remedies in the United States extended to 1975. You could have gotten bromide.
Can I get it now, Karen?
No, they were withdrawn due to chronic toxicity. So you probably wouldn't want it now.
Sounds like it worked.
I know. It's a sedative. We just missed being able to get it.
All right. So Frank takes the Isis charm and hangs it on her doorknob, and then he falls asleep on the couch. Next, we see Ardith Bey using his magic on Frank.
Because he doesn't have the charm on anymore.
No, I
So
guess.
he can now squeeze his heart.
And he makes it to the door and grabs the Isis charm and collapses.
Yes, so that's what saves him, the charm.
Yeah, and then Ardith Bey calls Helen to him.
And she just steps over him and leaves the room.
Yes.
Steps over Frank and leaves.
And they go to the museum. At the museum, Ardith Bey explains to Helen that her soul is in a mortal body.
She's now dressed as the princess, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Ardith Bey removes the princess's mummy from the sarcophagus. And he burns it. Because he said, I could bring this thing back to life, but it would just be like a mindless thing, doing my whims, whatever.
It doesn't have a soul, is what he says, because her soul, the princess's soul, is in Helen. The mummy is just the body.
Yeah. And he explains that Helen must die, and then he will rise her from the dead. And Helen tries to get away, but the manservant grabs her.
She doesn't want to die, she says.
Ardith Bey puts her in a trance. She says she no longer fears him. Back at the house, Dr. Mueller finds Frank. They realize she must have gone to the museum. I don't know why they realize that, but that's what they deduce.
Ardith was talking to her. He sounds kind of like a mom, like, I carried you for 9 months. He's like, I loved you and have been loving you for 3,700 years or whatever he says. All you need is a little bit of agony. Why won't you just do it? I've been in agony for years. You just have to have a moment. But she doesn't want to die.
They realize she must have gone to the museum and that Ardith Bey is going to kill her and make her a living mummy like himself. That Dr. Mueller, he's very smart.
Yeah, they get there in record time, too.
Next, we see Helen. I wrote in her sarcophagus, but it's not really. She's on an embalming table, right?
Yes.
So it's an embalming room. Frank and Dr. Mueller arrive, and Ardith Bey is about to stab Helen right in the stomach.
With a very dull-looking knife.
She jumps up and she prays to the statue of Isis, which is right there in the room. Frank and Dr. Mueller enter, and Ardith Bey puts them in a trance with his magic ring.
His scarab ring, yes.
The statue of Isis comes to life, Karen.
Well, she's begging it. She's praying to Isis.
Yes.
Help me, help me.
And it lights the scroll of Thoth on fire.
The hand of the statue moves and lights up, and then the scroll's on fire.
Ardith Bey turns to dust.
Disintegrates and falls to the ground.
Frank goes to Helen and brings her back to present time, Karen.
Yes, she's fainted again. Dr. Mueller says he's called her back to ancient Egypt. Call her with your love to bring her back. And it works.
Yep, as it always does.
When you call your girlfriend back from ancient Egypt with your love.
Well, yeah.
Oh, every time. Works like a champ.
Just have to profess my undying love, and they all come back, Karen.
No matter where they are.
Yeah. Then we see the skeleton of Ardith Bey, Karen, on the floor.
Yes, as the scroll burns.
The end. Credits. All right, Karen. Anything you really enjoyed or were pleasantly surprised by in this film from 1932 starring Boris Karloff, which you picked for us this week?
I liked the story. When I first saw this a couple Halloweens ago, I had never seen it because I just didn't think I would like it. And it turns out I did like it. It's really a love story when you think about it. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't work out, but he's been waiting all of this time to reunite with his love. So I liked the story.
Okay. Anything else?
The clothes, of course.
Clothes.
I liked.
Do you like the ancient Egyptian references? And
I did. I like
Dr.
It's kind of my gig. I like ancient Egypt stuff. I don't know a lot about it. I don't know a lot about the gods and goddesses, but I do enjoy reading about it. So
okay.
I like that connection.
There was a time in my life where I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Doesn't everybody at one time in their life want to be an archaeologist?
Maybe they do. Listener, email us and let us know. Did you want to be an archaeologist? Because apparently Karen and I did.
But then I realized once, I don't know where I was, maybe Athens, when I was in a museum and they had little pieces of pottery that they had discovered and had put together. And I was looking at it as a graduate student and thinking, this person's whole thesis was uncovering this, like sand, sifting through tons of dirt and sand and whatever, and finding one tiny little piece of pottery.
Trying to piece them together.
Yes. And I was like, oh my God, how
I thought it was funny at the bebeginning that they were piecing together pottery at the beginning, just as they were
tablets,
whatever was going on.
Yeah.
And it went together
it just
perfectly.
fit right together like a puzzle. But that's not how it is.
Yeah,
but it was just so to look at those things and think, oh my God.
But, I thought, I could go to, Egypt and sit under an umbrella with a martini or something.
That I could do.
Let all the locals dig until they find something, and just call me. Call me when you find something.
Yeah. And I'll decide if it's worth it or not. I think it partly, I know where we grew up, we could find rocks, a lot of rocks with shells embedded in them and things. And so when you washed them off, you got that feeling of discovering something. I think that's where it came from for me.
Yeah, I used to keep a box. I had a box of fossils I kept.
Yeah. So I think it's not just finding them like when we were kids. When you find a piece of pottery like that, you have to take a little brush and brush off little pieces of. I thought, oh my God, that's just horrible. I thought that would just be, you don't just pick it up, rinse it off, and stick it together like they did at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And we're pre-Indiana Jones, too, we should say, Karen,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So we saw Indiana Jones when we were in high school, right? So I think a lot of people...
Approximately.
Yeah, approximately. Give or take 5 or 10 years. But a lot of people younger than us probably saw like Raiders of the Lost Ark and think, ooh, I want to do that. But we predate that.
No, I'm saying it's digging up rocks in your backyard or in the creek and finding them and saying this is cool.
Yeah.
But realizing later in life how much work it actually is and how much of it is boring.
Yeah, sifting through dirt.
Yeah. And a lot of times you find nothing. Like the second, dig in this movie, they hadn't found anything.
Karen, anything else you were?
No, what did
really
you like
liked?
about it?
Not a lot. I mean, it's fine. Things I liked, I guess I kind of like the Egyptian stuff, but that's kind of shit I don't like too at the same time.
Yeah.
So I like it could be historically accurate, even though it's not.
Well, you could tell they did some research, which was nice. There were things that fit together.
I guess the makeup was pretty good.
Did you like when there was the couple of times they used a close up of Karloff's face where his eyes were all darkened? And then they lit them up slowly. That was cool.
Well, it was cool once. Yeah.
Well, they did reuse it, but that's when he was hypnotizing people and things. Yeah. So I thought that was a cool shot.
I did like the wardrobe. I thought the gowns were lovely. I didn't notice the shoes, Karen, but the gowns were lovely.
Have I taught you nothing? And the men's tuxes are nice. It was a nice.
That's fine. And the sets are always great,
Yeah, they're nice sets.
All right, Karen, what were you disappointed in?
I didn't like Helen. I didn't think she was a very good actress. I don't know. I just didn't really like her, which is always hard for me when a main character can't hold my interest. It's a different time, but when you see that with the British Museum, they're taking all the artifacts. They're stealing everything. But
they're at the Cairo Museum. It's the British.
But the guy complains about it. He says he's pissed.
Yeah, he would rather bring that shit back to Britain and get a medal or some shit. Right?
He's mad that they kept it. There's a joke out there of why are the pyramids still in Egypt? And the answer is because they won't fit in the British Museum.
Yeah.
Because they took everything. But it's just dated. That's all. I can tell I like this movie more than you did. What did you not like about it?
I found all the Egyptian shit a little confusing. That's the first thing. I didn't like the fucking magical hot tub. which is always when I seem to like come in on it. He's like watching the old time TV through his water. I never liked that shit. Didn't
Well,
like
it's
it.
magic. You have to buy into the magic. And
Well, I don't.
I think if
Apparently.
you were watching it without, when you normally watch it, like we watch it and take notes and things because we want to really know what's going on. But if you just watch it and you don't pay attention to the Egyptian stuff, it just kind of goes over your head.
He's like,
I don't think it lessens your experience any.
it's all they talk about at the end and stuff is, I don't know. It seems a little heavy handed to me. All the
Too
Egyptian
educational
shit.
for you.
And it's not even accurate. So I'm not going to learn anything.
Well, you could learn about ISIS.
Fictional. It's all fictional. Although
the mythology.
Imhotep was an actual person, like, apparently, but he was a mathematician or some shit back in ancient Egypt.
The mythology
but he wasn't, in love with the fucking princess or anything like that. I mean, all that shit's made up.
Well, it's like a
And the
Shakespearean
Thoth,
play
the book,
or
the
something.
scroll of Thoth. Yeah, Thoth was a god or deity, but there was no scroll of Thoth.
Well, they're not going to let people know where the scroll of Thoth is. People will be bringing people back from the dead all over the place. You can't let that shit slip out.
I think
in the
we
interview.
know what happens when that occurs, right, Karen?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of horror films based on that.
Pet Cemetery, maybe.
The Monkey's Paw.
Like I said at the beginning, this has always been my least favorite, and it still is. Now that I've watched the whole thing from start to finish, my opinion has not changed.
Well, that's true, but they're all pretty good.
Not a fan. I mean, Karloff is good. He's very good. As he was speaking, I'm like, wow, I could listen to that guy read the phone book, probably. Right?
Yeah, he's good.
He's a good speaker.
I don't think she was good, and I think that's
maybe
part of the issue. And you didn't like the Egyptian setting, but I did. So, I don't think it's any worse than any others. I don't think it's the best one by far. It probably is my least favorite also, but I was surprised when I watched it before how much I actually liked it.
Well, I was hoping that once I watched the whole thing, I would like it more, and I do not. So,
well, the other ones are pretty hard to beat. I liked it better than The Bride of Frankenstein.
I'm not even sure I did.
Even with the little people and all that crap.
Don't know. I don't take this one for some reason.
All right.
I noticed the music too. There's a soundtrack, and when it's on, it's pretty good, but it stops at odd times, or maybe not odd times. Maybe they're supposed to, like important times. But I think the soundtrack would add something to the suspense, maybe, but they stop it.
You would have preferred him to look into a crystal ball or something instead of the magical hot tub.
I would prefer him be there, actually.
Well, but that doesn't show his magic. They're trying to show that he's magical.
I guess maybe that's my problem. I don't believe in magic.
You don't believe? You don't clap for Tinkerbell?
Apparently not, Karen. All right. What kind of cocktail rating you want to give this film, Karen?
Well, I would give it a 3, but I'm guessing you're leaning towards a 4.
I'm okay with a 3.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 3. 3s are okay. All right. Comments on our Egyptian martini?
I like it.
Mine has evaporated.
I would make it again. You know me, I'd put water in it.
Well, I did.
Yeah. I think it would make a difference if you know.
I tried to float it on top, and it looked like it was floating on top there at the beginning. So it was pretty good. I don't know why it's called an Egyptian martini.
It's only called that because there was a club in Philadelphia.
Bar.
Yeah. So you couldn't go and order it. You couldn't go to another bar and say I'd like an Egyptian martini, which is a shame because it's a classy looking drink too, in a martini
As I said,
glass.
The taste is familiar, so I think we've had a drink very similar.
I give it a thumbs up.
Yep.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Anything we learned today, Karen?
Oh my God, so much. Egyptian mythology about bromide, papyrus, Isis, Osiris, Seth, Thoth.
Secrets of Isis.
I don't remember that.
Oh my God, I watched it. Partly because I liked, apparently, Joanna Cameron.
So was it
as
real?
Isis?
Was it animated?
No.
So
you don't remember Shazam with the little kid it would say Shazam and then become, oh, his name was Bailey something, and he said
I
Shazam. And
I only remember it from the movie.
it was like
That
this Shazam ISIS hour or some shit. But
No, I don't remember it.
yeah, and Joanna Cameron played ISIS.
Were they kids or were
No,
no,
they were
no,
like
they were adults?
20s.
I do not remember it.
Yes. Well, it was only on 2 seasons, 1975 and 1976, Karen. You were way too young to remember that, I'm sure.
But I'm way older than you, so I don't know what happened. I probably just don't remember it.
Somehow Joanna Cameron stood out to me for some reason.
She moved you.
She did.
Well, if you're looking for a little old-timey romance horror film, this one will work for you.
I tried to like the romance, but didn't.
He got a little entitled. He's like, nobody's done more suffering for you than me. So suffer for me.
And she agreed with him.
She did, but she didn't want to suffer. That doesn't mean just because he did it doesn't mean she has to. So that was it was creepy.
All right. Next movie, Karen.
It's all you, Greg. What do you got?
Is it my choice?
It is.
All right. So next week, Karen, we're going to watch the film Countess Dracula.
Okay. What year was that made?
1971, Karen.
Is it a Hammer film?
It is a Hammer film, Karen. Shocking.
I know.
Starring Ingrid Pitt.
Oh, from
Vampire Lovers, Karen.
Yeah. Okay. I could see it in my head. I just couldn't pull the name out. Okay. Do you have a drink for this lovely film?
I do, Karen.
Can't wait. What's that?
It is called the Vampire Cocktail.
Have we not had the Vampire Cocktail
We have not.
before? That's crazy.
Yep. We're going to need cranberry juice, raspberry liqueur, and vodka.
Sounds like a winner. How do you make it?
Basically, Karen, we're going to take 1 ounce cranberry juice, 1 ounce raspberry liqueur, and 1 ounce vodka, put it in a shaker, shake it up, and serve it in an old-fashioned glass as a shot.
Awesome.
Looking
Why did you
forward to
pick
it.
this movie?
Karen, Ingrid Pitt was born November 21st.
Ah.
So a couple days ago, but this week was your week, so I couldn't do it. So I'm doing it next week.
All for Ms. Pitt.
All for Miss Pitt. Sadly, she has left this earth, Karen. But actually, she died November 23rd, which is today, Karen.
Oh.
As this episode comes out, which is crazy. So she lived just past her 73rd birthday. So I'm celebrating Ingrid Pitt's birthday.
Excellent.
All right. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
As always, I'm going to thank our listeners. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Thanks for spending time with us. Get your list ready, Greg. Who are you going to thank?
I am just going to thank the band Verse 13 for providing all of the music on the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music does make the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast, where the movies might be iffy, but the drinks are always solid. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast, or go to our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want the direct line, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. If you really want to help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And remember, always drink responsibly. See you next week.